Yeah, it was home brewing. It kind of became popular in the 1980s. I kind of got caught by the bug, so I thought, it sounds like something fun to do. So started brewing, and it was fun, and it was cheap, and it was a nice little hobby. I had a long career as a mechanical engineer. I worked for an oil refinery. Prior to that, I was in the military, nuclear power in the Navy, and prior to that, I was a carpenter. So I had a lot of different skills that I developed over the years, and I thought for sure I can make a little brewery and make it happen. I live on a property, used to be a dairy farm, and it's one of the oldest surviving milk houses in the area because it's all brick. Most of them were made out of wood, and they would just fall apart. And then I built a little brewery in there, small little one-barrel system, and I was able to make some really good beers on it. And that's when I kind of got the idea that I could do this as a business. The little milk house is like, a couple hundred feet from the creek, so it's just a logical. I like the name, I like the sound of the name, and it's just fun to draw people in from the area who know about Hickory Creek. We're just a laid-back, nice place to come and have a beer. We're always looking at expanding and increasing the experience of coming here and having our good craft beer. We don't have a kitchen. We encourage people to eat, bring in food, order food in. Quite often we'll have food trucks on the weekends. Everything I brew with passion. We have some flagships. The Kolsch is our #1 seller. The Chipmunk, the Belgian Triple, is really good. Our Brown Ale is really popular, and our Porter, our Imperial Porter, really popular. So those will probably always be around. People are asking me, what's next coming? What's coming down the pike? I was like, we're doing a Maibach. What's a Maibach? Well, you're going to find out. It's amazing to see the people's reaction when I put on a new beer. And not that it's a surprise, but it's just always gratifying just to get to that point. The people like my beer, so that's what's important to me. Hi, everybody. My name's Gary Meyer. I'm the owner of Hickory Creek Brewing Company in New Lenox. And we're at my home right now, outside my little brew house. This is sort of our test kitchen. And we're gonna teach you how to brew beer today. So let's go inside and I'll show you the equipment. So this is our brew stand. It consists of 3 pots, and it's got 2 pumps and a heat exchanger to cool down the beer when we're done. And so the first pot over here is our hot liquor tank, which is just a big pot of water. Inside here there's a coil, so that the coil is connected to this pot, so we can circulate the beer through the coil and in through the hot water here to keep it at a constant temperature. Inside this vessel, this is our mash tun. This is where we're going to put the grains to brew the beer. And the last vessel is our boiling pot, where we're going to boil the wort after we process it through the mash tun. I want to show you one little thing. Stop. So hi, real quick, this is the hot liquor tank. You can see the coil inside. This is just the lid here. And then moving over to the mash tun, you can see inside is a false bottom. It's a stainless steel plate with a whole bunch of holes in it. And then this is our recirculating hose. So we can circulate liquid over top of the grain bed once we establish that. And more in just a second. Hey, hi, welcome back. We're letting the water heat up, and while the water's heating up, we're going to get our grains ready to go into the mix. So we have our base grain here, and this is what it looks like. From the malters, they take the grain from the field, and then they process it so it's ready for brewing. We're going to put it into this machine here. It's a little hopper, and down inside here are 2 rollers that when I turn them with my drill, they will crush the grains, and the grains will fall down into this bucket. So I'm going to fill up this hopper. And we're going to turn on the drill and stop. Hang on. Let me adjust my drill here. It's a little wobbly. Okay, so that's our little grain mill. And you can see there's all the crushed grain. So the mill mashes up and breaks open the hull so we can get to those sugars that are inside the grain. Now, how much grain do we use and what types of grain do we use? Well, we have a recipe. And I use software called Beersmith. It's developed by a guy named Brad Smith. He's a big brewer and home brewer out to the nth degree. And he developed his own software that you can buy. There's many recipes on there, but you can tweak and develop your own recipes. That's what I do. And so on our recipe mill, it shows how much grain, what type of grain, and how much of each to use. And that's where we're at now. So we've got our grain. We're waiting for our water to heat up. We'll be back to you in just a minute. Okay, guys, so we've got our grains crushed. Now we're ready to what's called mash in. We're going to put it into hot water. So in the mash tun, I have water level up to about here, about 5 gallons of water. And then our hot liquor tank, it's all the way full. And we're circulating the water through these, maintaining the temperature. We're up to temperature now, so we're going to mash in. Just pour the grains in. And then I'm going to mix them up so they get all wet so there's no dry spots. Grains are a lot like cereal, they get real lumpy, so you have to break up the lumps. What we're trying to do here is extract all the sugars from the grain using hot water. Okay, so now it's all mixed in, and what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for about an hour and let the water soak into the grains and extract those sugars. More later. Okay, welcome back. So where we are now is we soaked the grains for about an hour in hot water that extracted all those sugars, and then we started to transfer it from here into the boiling pot. And as we did that, we put more hot water over the top of the grains to wash through the grain bed and extract as many sugars as we could. So now you can see this is all amber colored beer in the boiling pot, and we brought it up to a boil. And we're making a West Coast IPA today, so there's several hop additions during the boil. We're going to boil for an hour. The first hop addition goes in right now. These are the hops, and they come in little pellets. The plants are crushed at the farmer's fields, and then they pelletize it. So we just measure it out in accordance with our recipe, and we're going to add 3 different times during the boil. So here goes the first one. We just put it into the pot, and that's it. Okay, we're back. We're at the end of the boil. We have one more hop addition to do. I'm going to turn the heat off, and then so the heat is off, the boil will stop, and here goes that last hop addition. And then we have a little feature called a whirlpool. And I'll turn my pump on, and it'll start to swirl the beer in there, and it'll separate out all those little solid particles you can see in there. So when we pump the beer off, it stays clean. More on that later. Hey guys, welcome back. We finished our boil. We did our whirlpool to swirl everything up in the pot. That draws all the sediment to the center. And now we're pumping it off into our fermenter over here. And as we pump it off, we go through our heat exchanger here to cool it off. Because you can't, if you put the yeast in and the beer's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. So we have to cool it down. And this is going to take a few minutes. When we're all done transferring it over, then we're going to put the yeast in, close this all up, and let it sit for 2 weeks and let the fermentation process take place. What the yeast does is it feeds on all those sugars that we put in from the grains, and it converts it to alcohol and CO2. So that's the fun part. That's it. Thanks. So we finished transferring the beer into our fermenter, and I mixed up some yeasts. We use dry yeast, but we rehydrate it. So here it is, all swished up. We cooled this down. You can see this is our cooling setup for our fermenter. And I'll just pitch the yeast in. And the only thing we didn't show you is how we aerate it. We have to get oxygen back into the beer because the boiling process takes all the oxygen away. The yeast needs oxygen to work, so we have the oxygen, we have the yeast, we're at the perfect temperature. Now all we do is we'll seal this up. You want to take one quick peek inside? And we'll seal it up. And okay, so it's a sealed fermenter. We'll let it sit for 2 weeks and it'll become beer. It takes about 2 weeks for the fermentation process to fully complete. And that's all there is to it. Beer is easy.